I had to abandon the idea that cold calling is a numbers game. I had to abandon that. That actually is holding people back from reaching and having more contacts.
This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 346. Cold Calling is Not a Numbers Game, an interview with David Walter.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and today we interview David Walter, author of the new book, The $1 Million Rebuttal and Stratospheric Lead Generation Secrets, Cold Calling is Not a Numbers Game. Whoosh, what a mouthful, huh? Today, David reveals his B2B secret cold calling formula for getting to yes quickly. He believes that the more often a buyer says yes, the more likely they will buy. Abandon the numbers game myth and start helping your buyers with their problems. And one other thing, in this episode, David shares scripts that will work for you. And so, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, David. Are you ready to babble?
Absolutely.
David, you got a new book out. It's called The $1 Million Rebuttal. How'd you get that title?
I got that title. I thought about, how important naming a book is, and I went back and forth, and I just decided one day I had a client out in California. He emailed me, and he said, "Today we have made, as of today, $1 million on your appointments to date." And so that's what I realized is that rebuttal, that key rebuttal that I came up with, it was worth $1 million because it helped, at least several people make $1 million. So I thought, hey, you know what? What better than say this rebuttal is worth $1 million to get people interested?
The subtitle is Cold Calling's Not a Numbers Game. And this is what this book's really about. It's about cold calling. But what do you mean it's not a numbers game? Because that's not what we're commonly told, right? If I make 100 calls and 3% of those I'll close or something like that. If I just need to make sure I get X number of close, a month or so, I need to make X number of calls. That's not what this book says.
Yeah, exactly. So, of all the things all the hooks, that I'm a fan of Russell Brunson, and he talks about your hooks and your stories and everything. So the hook that I have, cold calling is not a numbers game, is the best hook out there because of what you just said. It's counterintuitive, and everyone is told, we're all told, it's a numbers game. When you go to any kind of a cold call center, sales, it's all it's a numbers game. It's drilled into our heads. Like, everybody seems to hear that. I meet people in a coffee shop, and they know it's a numbers game. So, and this was the way that I achieved my amazing results that we'll talk about, of setting 15 appointments a day. One of the big discoveries I had to make, Pat, was that I had to abandon the idea that cold calling is a numbers game. I had to abandon that. That actually is holding people back from reaching and having more contacts.
The word rebuttal is an interesting word. It kind of means like it has an argumentative sense to it. Like, somebody says something and you like, oh, that's not true. Let me rebut that. How does that play into this book?
Well, it's I went to debate. When I was in college, I was a debate class, and so that's kind of, you have the pro, the con, the rebuttal. So that's where I got that. But that's typically in the sales language. The idea is that if there's an objection, you apply rebuttal. And the idea was, of course, in my book, I kind of take away a little bit of the sting away from the rebuttal, because you actually, it's a very synthetic, hidden, invisible rebuttal, and not a in your face rebuttal. In fact, when you apply when you actually apply because the $1 million rebuttal is basically one objection. It's the send information objection. And so that's the one I call the $1 million rebuttal, because what the book does, Pat, is it drives people. I came up with a system that drives people from the initial call, when you get past the gatekeeper and then you get a decision maker on the phone, and then you go through the whole entire conversation. I came up with a system that led almost everybody that I talked to ask me for information. Dave, will you send information? And so that send information objection and the way I dealt with it, I called that the $1 million rebuttal. And so it's one rebuttal or one way to overcome that. And what's interesting about it is that it's agreement. That was the one thing I found when people say send me information. I discovered that not only I but most people in your audience probably have a gut reaction to not want to send that information.
Right. Because what you really haven't dug into is whether or not they're even qualified. You haven't really dug into whether or not they have a problem or a desire, right? Could be both sides, right? A pain or a desire that you could somehow fulfill through whatever thing that you're selling, right?
Yeah, that's a core title. There's lots of little hidden golden nuggets in here. And I have, trying to cover all of them, in a podcast is difficult. So if you want to zero in on that one, that's probably the most impactful concept because, I don't go through the entire story for the audience today, but basically I went through a period where, I needed a job. My dad's business had made $1 million and then we went bankrupt. I got a job cold calling. I wasn't making the money. And then I picked up Zig Ziglar's book, See You at the Top, and then started looking in the subconscious, like claiming my qualities and said I was going to get 15 appointments a day. And all these secrets came to me that I put together to get 15 appointments a day every day for 6 months. The biggest one of all those secrets that I discovered was that most people, like when you're calling, you feel like you have to do a numbers game because it's hard to make contact, and almost everybody tells you they're happy with what they have, and you just have to keep calling and calling and calling until you find somebody that has an interest or what we call a need, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's the idea that cold calling is a numbers game or sales is a numbers game is that mantra. And then the second big idea is that a good prospect has to have a need. And so that's the big thing is, because in that call center, everybody else, it was like 25 people there, they were setting about 2 a day every day. And then when I put all these principles together, these secrets together into one fluid concept, one system, then I started doing 15 a day every day. And the difference between those two things is they were looking for a needle in a haystack, which is there's a lot of data out there that says in any market, there could be at any given time about 3% of that entire market of, say, lawyers or engineers or whatever you're calling that have a top of mind need, like an awareness that they have a problem and maybe looking in some way for a solution. That's a needle in a haystack. And that's why they were setting 2. And my big thing is in the book is I show you that the people that say they're happy with what they have, that's your best prospect because there's more of them and that's not a no. And you can actually convert those people into appointments. And it's a huge opportunity for any business to make a lot more money because those people there's just more of them. You just run into them all day long that you talk to them and they're happy with what they have. And we just go on to the next call looking for the person that has a need when I realized, you know what, those are opportunities. And that's how I was able to set more appointments because I target those people and show you how in the book, how you can get those people to say yes to an appointment.
So why would people who are happy take a moment to chat with you? I'm certain they're busy people. I'm certain they got a lot going on in their lives. Some stranger just calls you up and says, I want to talk to you about stuff. And they would say, sure, I'd be happy to set an appointment. Why would they do that? What did you do to get them to agree to an appointment?
Well, what I do is I start off with basically addressing the elephant in the room. When I call you, Pat, if I call you and I already know, from my years of calling that anybody that walks in, for example, when I was in retail in high school, I figured out real quick that everybody that walked in, nearly 90% said, I'm just looking, right? And so same thing. I pretty much pick up the phone and I already know by the odds that you're probably going to tell me that you're happy with what you have. So instead of waiting around, and this is kind of a legal principle, they say if you have a defendant and he's got something in his past, don't wait for the prosecutor to bring it out. You want the defense to go ahead and bring it out. It deneuters it or takes away the sting because you're telling them first. And so that's the concept is, Pat, hey, this is David. How you doing? Great. You know what? It is kind of a cold call. We're a PEO. We sell copiers. We do this, that, the other. But listen, let me stop you first, Pat. I know that you're a successful business owner, and you probably got a copier that's working for you already. You've got a company that helps you find employees. Blah blah blah. Whatever it is, and I'm sure you're happy with that. Am I right?
Right. Yep.
Yep. And so that's the way you enter that conversation. You just go right past that objection because you acknowledged it before you even had to say. All the other dummies out there call and wait for the person to say, "Hey, look, stop! I'm not happy. I already got it." And then the idea is that you've already got a no. What's the hardest thing to overcome in the world, Pat?
A no.
Exactly. So if you can over bypass the no, you get to it first and tell them you've just changed the no to a yes. See that? So when I say I know you're happy and you're not looking to change, am I right?
That's true.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah, I'm commonly happy with what I have. I can identify with those people.
Yeah, exactly. So I just got my first yes, and so that's how to win friends and influence people. The power of getting a yes, and of course that's just a side note. Most people out there think that that's manipulative, Pat, because
No. I don't think so at all. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that idea out there in the boiler room where he says, if you're drowning and I throw you a lifeline, would you grab it? Yes, buy more shares from me. That's manipulation. In fact, I remember when I was in that call center, I was telling them about it, and everybody said, "Is the sky blue?" Yes. Then set an appointment. That's manipulation. That's a false use of this. What I'm talking about is actually what we just talked about was actually agreement on something real and tangible. That's the actual yes game, and that's kind of what I play. If you can keep a person, and this is right to your question, if I can get a guy who wasn't expecting me, doesn't have an interest in what I'm talking about, or didn't think he did when I talked to him, if I can get that guy agreeing, right? Yes, maybe. Sometimes a no could be agreement too, and it's still agreement. I can get that guy on the phone, and I can keep him on the phone for like 30 minutes. That's one of the secrets.
I get that you have kind of beat them to the punch that they're happy with what they have. I still not really clear. My listeners are probably thinking this too. What would motivate them then to say, "Yeah, let's schedule a meeting and talk about how happy I am with who I have"?
Yeah. So basically, what I'm doing is it's really a subset. You have to take that whole volume of people that say they're happy with what they have. There's a subset of those people that I call them open-minded prospects, and I'm really targeting Pat open-minded prospects. And what I do is it's kind of a trick, and it's something from How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is challenge. It's a challenge. It's also giving a dog a good name. It's those two principles. And basically, I ask you, Pat, even though you're happy with what you have, and of course, I talk about layering in a lot of. I keep telling people, like, you're not going to change. I know you're happy. Through the whole call, I keep doing that. It's like two parts of that person's brain I'm talking to. So on one side, I got to keep telling them, I know, don't worry. I know you're happy. You're not going to change. This is something in the future. But hey, Pat, I mean, you seem you're a decision maker. You're an entrepreneur. You're a manager. You're this. You're that. So you're a higher level person, and I'm sure that if you thought there was something better out there in the future, if you thought there was something better, faster, cheaper, more productive, like everything amazing, and it dropped out of the sky and hit you on the head and fell in your lap, Pat, you'd at least look at it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's curiosity, and curiosity is what does that. And so, what I tell people in the book is that one of the keys is when you start looking at what you're going to sell. I call it a message leader. You look for a message leader. You look for something, and when I was in security industry, when I was selling security to alarm dealers, the guys that go out and put the PRIs, the motion detectors in your home and everything, I found that we had all kinds of products we didn't sell anymore. Those arcane products, the one was the video in the home that could have a video alarm, and it needed this $30,000 investment in a big monitoring thing. I picked that out as my message leader, and the managers hated it. They hated me. They harangued me about doing it. But guess what? I tripled the sales. I didn't sell that thing, but by having that message leader and talking about something different and unique, I had the conversations, and then people bought wires and batteries and PRIs, and I ended up selling about 4 of those systems, and they blew their minds. That's the thing. You've got to pick out something unique about your offer. If you're an insurance, what is the unique insurance that's not talked about, that people don't know about? And basically, that's the key. When I ask you, do you keep your options open if there's something new or better, different out there? Would you at least look at it? Once again, that's another yes, right? And if you're open minded, and I assume you're open minded, Pat, that's called giving the dog a good name. Then basically you say yes. And then the whole key comes down to telling you something that's interesting. And so, there's all kinds of interesting things. There's a pest control company that says they prevent pests now. They're not a pest control company, they prevent pests. There's a air conditioning company here in San Antonio that says he's not going to sell you a new unit. He said he kept his mom's unit going for like 20 years. So he knows you may not have money. And then he also cleans your ducts for free. When he does, he has all these things. They're all different from everybody else. So you just have to pick one of those and say, hey, did you know there's a company out there that doesn't want to do this or that? Have you heard of this? And when they say they haven't heard of it, I won't go into the whole thing. That's the trigger that creates curiosity. And you basically have taken somebody and lifted them out of a state of not being interested, not even thinking about something, into a few yeses, getting them some rapport building. And of course, I mix building rapport, being funny and all that stuff. And people love to be complimented. So when you do all these things, you become a completely different person than most people that call them. Most people call them rude, arrogant. They don't listen. They don't have anything interesting to say. And because of that, people like you. And when you do this approach, by the end of it, you're not really asking for much. That's what I say. That when I thought about this all the day, Pat, I realized people set appointments all the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, all the time. You probably got appointments this week. Now, because of COVID, maybe they're more like webinars, stuff like that, right? But
yeah. Right.
Yeah, but before that, people were meeting all the time. So you're not, at the end of the day, you're not asking for that much if you're just asking for a sales meeting, for 20, 30-minute meeting. And so when you really make it the fun thing, like how to win friends, influence people, you make it no big deal. You take away all the commitment. You put it in the future. All the things I teach people, it's not a big deal. And when you're fun and all the things I'm teaching about the book, it's so easy. And so that's how I just applied those things, and it's amazing that this really hasn't gotten out yet. And if more people read this, it would be a game changer. It's just now. Thank you so much for letting me be on the show to talk about this.
Well, I think there's a lot of hesitancy still in this, and it really doesn't have anything to do with, in some regards, what we've been talking about. Because in the last 10 years, telephones have changed immensely. There used to be a lot of landlines. There used to be a lot of office lines, but now the telephone's just another app that's that's on a little computer in your pocket, right? And the younger adult, they would prefer to text, and they would prefer to have the chat apps, chit chat on Snapchat and whatnot. A lot of startup companies don't even really have an office phone. I've done a fair amount of cold calling. What do you do when you call and nobody answers? What do you do when it just rolls to voicemail? How do you get around that?
Well, I mean, most companies, like, even the only obstacle right now is COVID, and I'm helping a company with a campaign right now, and they just set a lot of appointments, but they missed the ones where the people were working remotely because they're not hard. So that's an obstacle right now. But just before that, before COVID, I just did another campaign with somebody, and the guy set 15 appointments in one day. If you're talking about businesses, you want to talk to a company that's got money that we're going to buy something, you're going to qualify the list, and you're going to know before you call them that they have somebody answering the phone.
So this advice is B2B advice.
Yeah.
What about for B2C?
A lot of the principles work because I worked at MBNA America Bank selling credit cards to consumers. So I use a lot of the same, talk about that experience in the book when I worked there. A lot of it works the same way. But you just have to get a list of people's cell phone numbers. That's all.
But the thing is, this is the thing, right? Because of robocalls, I get lots of random telephone numbers calling me all the time. And sometimes I'm expecting business, so I'm better about answering them. Some people, a lot of people never answer their phones if it's a number they don't expect. How do you get around that?
Well, I don't really solve that problem. I don't really discuss that. That's a more B2C issue. Like I said, you have to, I've met a guy recently that he can get mobile numbers for consumers. So that's what you have to do. I don't address that in my book. This is mainly B2B. This is, for business, calling for business, selling to businesses. And if you qualify a list, and I can get a list of 100 names together, one of the things you're going to qualify for is they pick up the phone. If they have a voicemail system, if they have extensions, you look on the website to make sure they have employees. You want to verify a list of a larger list, and then you actually call everybody and you try to find the name of all the people that you're going to be calling and make sure they have enough employees and all that. And I have a teach you how to do that in the book. And if you do that, you have a very refined list of people you're calling, and you know that they're all legitimate businesses. You know that they're going to pick up the phone. So if there are companies out there when you're qualifying that don't even pick up the phone, you don't even spend time trying to contact these executives. That's my advice.
Excellent. Now, if people wanted to find this book, where would they go?
I've got the book on Amazon, and it's in Audible. It's ebook and print. And then I've also got getbookoffer.com. And at that website, you can get a free copy of my book. You just have to pay shipping. But then you get a lot of interesting things I give away, a lot of bonuses and stuff on that. You just have to pay shipping for the book. And I also sign those copies. So you get a signed copy when you go that route.
Oh, cool. Cool. What if people want to get in touch with you? How would they do that?
The best way is LinkedIn. I even have my cell number on there. In fact, the number's in the book too. And one of the testimonials I have is a guy, he bought my book and then he wanted to reach out to me to hire me to train him. And he called me and he said, lo and behold, David answered. So the number's in the book. It's also on my LinkedIn profile. And I will answer. I want to talk to people who bought my book. I'm very interested. Right now, believe it or not, I haven't done a lot of advertising yet for this. I've been putting my funnel for my video training and all that stuff that you will find out when you go through my system at getbookoffer.com. You'll end up finding out about all the video training that I have. I've been putting that together, but what I'm doing now, believe it or not, is the people that go through and buy my book, I try to connect with them on LinkedIn. I put them in a Facebook group, and that's all. I do it right now. It's free. It's part of an offer I'm going to have. But people coming through this will end up being in my LinkedIn profile group. I will offer a bunch of free stuff to you. I'm getting to know them so I can get results. And I just talked to a guy the other day that just set this killer appointment, made it sell, and he's like, "Thanks to your book, I just closed the big deal." And that's what I want to hear. I love hearing those stories.
I bet you. I really enjoyed your book. This is just a really great topic. It never ends. I believe in cold calling. I think everybody should get comfortable being uncomfortable from the telephone, and I believe the advice that you have in here is rock solid. So David, thank you very, very much for visiting us here in Sales Babble. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for challenging me, and enjoyed having coffee with you. Nice conversation.
When trying to schedule a meeting, immediately go for the elephant in the room. That's what David said. That's why in the show notes we've added the scripts that he used in order to get people to agree. His whole script is based on the idea of getting to yes. Since the buyer says so many yeses, they're more likely to agree to meet and schedule a meeting. Go to the show notes at www.salesbabble.com, and you can find this episode and all the show notes for past episodes right on the homepage. Now, one of the best ways people hear about Sales Babble is from listener reviews. If you could go to your favorite podcast app and leave us a 5-star comment, that would be really great, because word of mouth is how podcasts spread. If you have a question or a comment about this episode or any episode, don't hesitate to reach out by clicking on the Babble Me button right on the website. Love to hear what you think. That's all we've got for today, so until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.